Good morning, Dan, and in for Amy J this morning, Chicago Tribune columnist John Cass. And John, this may be my favorite column of 2019.
Did I write it?
You did not write it.
Well, then.
Well, I'm sorry. I hate to.
Yeah.
It's not. Don't take it as an insult. It's just a completely different nature. And look, you write about things that are in the present tense, and this harkens back to an old adage known by no one except me, which is everything you need to know in life you learned on Sesame Street back in the day. It really is. What we can learn from Oscar the Grouch, this piece by Colin Fleming in the Wall Street Journal.
Oh, great piece.
From a few weeks ago. Oscar the Grouch. Good grouching. And the holidays are here, so what better time to talk about good grouching when you have to be around family for extended periods of time? What is good grouching? What's bad grouching? What's the lesson from Oscar the Grouch? By the way, from this column, we actually had a listener. It was remarkable, the listener feedback we got, how many people know so much about Sesame Street along the lines of Colin Fleming, have analyzed it this way. And
Mr. Sesame Street, the Sesame Street expert that called in?
Yeah. He dropped off a book for me from Carol Spinney, who did Oscar the Grouch and Big Bird, The Wisdom of Big Bird and the Dark Geniuses of Oscar the Grouch. It's actually really interesting. I mean, it's sort of strange to talk about puppets this way, but hey, you never know where wisdom is going to reveal itself. Colin Fleming writes about Oscar the Grouch. Charming audience with irrepressible bonhomie. He's not the sort to suffer a fool. He's not desperate to make a friend. But if you're also of a questing spirit, he'll take you to his grouchy bosom. He's a real friend for life, not one for social media back-scratching. And he references an example of what he's talking about, this great episode with my favorite musical artist of all time, Johnny Cash, singing a song that is just so appropriate for this show, Nasty Dan.
Oh, Nasty Dan was the meanest man I ever knew. He'd stomp and scream and be real mean the whole day through.
Yeah?
He'd frown a bunch, he ate nails for lunch and he'd never laugh.
Well, I'd like him.
He'd growl and yell and I heard tell he never took a bath.
Wow.
Nasty Dan.
Nasty Dan.
Was a nasty man.
Yeah?
Hard to understand that Nasty Dan.
All right, one more
Now,
stanza.
Nasty Dan was a nasty man the whole day long.
Good for him.
He'd go where he could and he'd try real good to make things go wrong.
Oh, yeah.
He'd jump for joy when a little boy would trip and fall.
Really mean.
And the only words that he ever said were, I don't like you at all.
Yeah, right on.
Dan was a nasty man. Hard to understand that Nasty Dan.
Yeah, but then he meant Nasty Pearl, and it ends better.
I'm glad you got a theme song.
I love it.
I have my own theme song. You should have yours.
That is my theme music. I'm gonna I'm gonna get you, sucker, where they carry around the theme music in a boombox like the Wayans brothers. That's what I'm gonna do with Nasty Dan. I love it. For more on this topic, as well as the problem of human-splaining, we're pleased to be joined by Colin Fleming, author and contributor to the Wall Street Journal, Rolling Stone, USA Today, and also Buried on the Beaches, Cape Stories for Hooked Hearts and Driftwood Souls. Colin Fleming, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Greetings, new radio friends, and happy Thanksgiving Eve Moro to you.
Yeah,
Don't you love when he starts doing the backing vocals like he's in the Shirelles, like he can't control himself?
He's in the Shirelles.
Great piece.
It really is. So let's get the backstory on this, on the genesis of this column. Were you somebody who has already been a Sesame Street fan and you early on recognized the wisdom of it, or did you sort of come to this by another direction?
No, I think I was along with Sesame Street's particular brand of sagacity from a really early age, but that was also kind of the generation I grew up with, that you would hunker down with plenty of sort of sugar that would rot your mind when you came home from school and endless reruns of the Brady Bunch. But then you'd also get this more astute quality with Sesame Street. And there were characters you didn't really care for in Sesame Street. It's like, oh, okay, this is Grover. This guy's a bit of an idiot. He deserves what he's going to get flying into these trees. And then there were others whose passion you really admired, like the Count. Like, wow, this dude gets off on counting to 10. Like, I hope to have that sort of happiness with anything in my life going forward. But then you have Oscar, and he's kind of like the Orphic, Socratic member of Sesame Street. He's like Owl in the 100 Acre Woods, but a lot smarter. He has all sorts of things going on in his can. He's like, oh, hold on. Let me go to the Renoir and Picasso art annex. It's like, wow, this guy, he's in his feet. He has a lot of stuff that he's passionate about. He's like Falstaff in a trash can. And I really admired his passion. And I also didn't like how kids my age were like, man, that Oscar, he's a complete jerk to everybody. It's like, you know what? He's really not. He's actually very loyal. It's just he's not someone who's going to suffer a fool willingly. He's going to have a close circle of friends. He's going to be passionate about those friendships, and he's going to be passionate about the things he cares about. And when we are passionate about things and we care about a lot of things, we also recognize a lot of things for rubbish. And it's fine to call that out, too, I think.
You know, in your piece, if I may read from it, you say about what a good grouch does. You say, you're allowed to search wide and love hard. You're allowed to think critically. And if you have cogent reasons for why, I don't know, that Jordan Peele film is tripe, you needn't apologize. Qualify, back down, preface your arguments by saying, I'm risking getting attacked here, but instead you do what Oscar does. You speak your mind. Really, I think that is the lesson of Oscar the Grouch that was forgotten by so many people who grew up on Sesame Street and then began to teach humanities at various colleges in the United States.
And also dispensed with by the people who grew up with Oscar the Grouch and then took to social media and put in their little hashtag about, like, you're a hater. Like, no, I might be more versed in this than you. And I can call out this Orson Welles film that you've only happened to see because it's on Netflix is lacking because it didn't do what something like he did in Magnificent Ambersons, which you've never seen. And that doesn't make me negative. That makes me informed. And we try to countervail that right now, often in this anti-expert age, by saying, oh, no, it's just the source vomit. You're the bad guy. I have a right to my opinion. Like someone is trying to take a form of democracy from you. And it's like we are all allowed to go out and learn as much as we wish to learn. And that ought to be easier than ever. I'm staring at the computer right now. I can hop on while I'm talking to you and look up Shakespeare's sonnets, or you can go listen to an entire Mozart opera, whatever you want to do. Chicago Art Museum. You can go through the paintings. I don't have to travel 850 miles from Boston to do that today. It's right here in front of me. And we all have that available to us. Oscar would take advantage of it. A lot of people don't. And then they get insecure. And when we get insecure, rather than address where we are lacking, because that takes a certain amount of heavy lifting, we target others. And that's something Oscar would not waste his time or energy doing. And again, I think that's really what makes him so of this age right now, even though he's been doing what he's done for 50 years.
Yeah, the way I take what you're saying about Oscar the Grouch and what you're saying about culture today is discernment and hate are not synonyms.
No, they're certainly not. And that idea of thinking critically labels you as someone who is just this endless dispenser of pejoratives is to impose a kind of intellectual fascism on you where you are not allowed to vet and think critically. For instance,
bingo.
The White Album by the Beatles is my favorite album, but if someone who knew something about music had, and not just for a clickbaity reasons why it was actually not that good, I want to hear those reasons from them, not so I go to their webpage and it's like, okay, you got the click. But maybe they'll have a way of presenting something they think is a negative that makes me enjoy something on the same point that I think is a positive even more. And that's exciting to me. And that was exciting to people like Plato, and that was exciting to people like Lincoln, and that was exciting to people like Dylan. And it's just exciting because I'm not threatened by that. But I think a lot of people are very threatened. And when they're threatened, what they do is they go on lockdown and they go on the attack.
Yeah, share with our listeners the anecdote you recall in your other piece in the Journal about human-splaining. It's not mansplaining or woman-splaining that's the problem. It's human-splaining, where you run up and down the stairs of the Bunker Hill Monument, and you have advice and counsel. You receive unsolicited advice and counsel when you do so.
Oh, it's impossible for me not to do so. It's like it's inevitable that I'm going to get some. So what I do is this unique training regimen, I guess, is not far from where I live, 1.5 miles away in Charlestown, is this monument for the famous Pyrrhic battle of Bunker Hill, where it was kind of like in the Revolutionary War, things didn't go well for our side. Yet it was this indication that maybe things might work out okay in the end. It's half of a Washington monument, so it's something like 220-odd feet and 294 stairs to the top, and you're supposed to take 15 minutes to go up and go down. So what I do is my workout, I go up and down every day, whether it's 5 times, 20 times, whatever it might be. And people are laboring, they're resting, they're dying. Sometimes I'll show up in the ambulances outside, and it's like, oh, great. Not going to be able to climb today if they carry someone out of there on the stretcher. I get a little merciless when it's time for my monument workout. But no matter what, I'll pass someone 7 times, right? And people who are so unobservant, they will still give me their counsel. It will be maybe a Zaftig tourist from Texas. And they will say to me, you're never going to make it up once at that pace. It's like, I've passed you like 5 freaking times. How can you, this is worrisome. First of all, what do you notice in your life? But they'll just tell me how it's going to be. Because what we do is whatever someone else's experience is, they assume that someone else must have the exact same experience, which is crazy to me. I mean, sometimes people will have no problem saying, wow, you have really nice, well-defined calves. And I think, well, you are quite comely, my friend. Maybe we can have romance. But if I had said that to you, I'd be in so much trouble. They tried to light me up and come for me on the Twitter. And it's like, no, it's like, thanks, I appreciate that. And I just note these things because they're constant. Every time in there, advice. Oh, yeah, how many times are you doing it today? 20. Well, why don't you see if you can do it once first? Okay, thanks.
All right, so you're in Charleston. All right, so I got to ask you, and this is to be very consistent with the nature of our discussion. The best movie ever set in Boston was it Good Will Hunting or The Town, and those are your only 2 choices?
Oh, no, I think they're both pretty terrible. I think Good Will Hunting's better than The Town. The Town it's so inauthentic. Good Will Hunting is also kind of inauthentic, and it's not even how that expression, how do you like them apples, works, which bothers me. To break your rule, to break. There's a better example of how that phrase actually works in Howard Hawks' Rio Bravo, but by far the best Boston movie, and it's not remotely close, is The Friends of Eddie Coyle with Robert Mitchum.
Oh, I never saw that.
Oh, that's good.
Oh,
I
never
seen.
Wait, who wrote it?
Wait, who wrote the book? I can't.
And the book too is pretty good.
Who wrote it?
The book, Mitchum was the guy who was the ex-DA. I've written about him. I'm forgetting right now. The guy was the ex-DA, and Mitchum was convinced that he was actually, for the dialogue, he was actually using wiretap conversations that he had. So Mitchum comes to Boston and he starts hanging out. I'm really going to get into my role. He starts hanging out with all these incredibly shady people that put the crew at risk and everything like that. But it is probably the best. It's a longtime Bostonian, the best Boston film I've ever seen. Better
even than The Last Hurrah?
Higgins was the author of the book. Now that I think of it,
Yeah.
and it's a good book. But yeah,
I've
movie. Seen it. I got a chance to see it on 35 millimeter, and then I went back and I actually, quote unquote, watched it a second time with my eyes closed just for the soundtrack, for the rhythm of the prose and the dialogue and everything. And it works almost like an audio book on film that way too.
We've got the Grouch as John Simon here on the radio.
I know it's quite
late John Simon.
Quite the range. I'm impressed, and I'm so impressed. I'm going to go watch Friends of Eddie Coyle. I'm ashamed that I haven't seen that. And I'm open enough and self-confident enough to defer to Colin Fleming when it comes to movies about Boston.
And plus,
trying to learn.
Plus, I figure you have nice
which would you say? Are you taking Good Will Hunting in that?
No. I was just kidding. Of the 2, the Good Will Hunting of The Town. Yeah, Good Will Hunting. Yeah, no question. But Last Hurrah is a good call too. That's pretty good. All right. So we have. I have some homework. Colin was busy turning his homework into Wall Street Journal columns.
He was bragging that he was a cinephile, but now he doesn't.
Well, now I'm ashamed that I haven't seen that Mitchum.
He doesn't
classic.
even know who Vittorio De Sica is.
Well, a guy like you is probably all about that Criterion collection as a cineast, so you can pick it up there. You know what? I think you can get half off for November through Barnes & Noble. You want to get yourself some Eddie Coyle because you will rewatch it.
All right, very good. Well, you know what? I deserve it. I'm going to buy myself that. Colin Fleming, author, contributor to Wall Street Journal, Rolling Stone, USA Today. I tweeted out, check out his piece on good grouching if you haven't read it yet. Also on human splaining, Wall Street Journal. Colin, thanks so much for joining us. A ton of fun. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it. He
joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy on the AM 560 The Answer mobile app. Just text the word app to 64636 to download the app today.
Balance of nature. Changing the world, one life at a time.
I am definitely enjoying and committed to the fruits and vegetable capsules. You know, the secret for this is there is no other place, no other source for getting all of those nutrients from simple fruits and vegetables. It's easy to take. I feel stronger and better, more energy, more completeness, less